Science means unresting endeavor and continually progressing development toward an aim which the poetic intuition may apprehend, but which the intellect can never fully grasp. That Max Planck quote really speaks to me. It resonates, especially coming from a scientist, because in his own words, he's admitting that what the scientist pursues can never be grasped by the intellect, only by the intuitive capacity that we all have. I think this is true not only of scientific endeavor, but any endeavor where someone is seeking out the truth with a capital T. The truth with a capital T is too big for the mind to comprehend. It seems to me that the deeper you delve into the fabric of the universe, the deeper you dig into the fundamental bedrock or foundation of existence, whether you do it scientifically or internally like mystics do, it always leads to a similar conclusion. And that conclusion is more an experience than an actual intellectual idea. And if you know much about Albert Einstein, or if you've read some of his non-scientific writings, his philosophical writings, you'll see very similar thoughts expressed there as well. Here you have a very brilliant mind, a scientist, and he admitted himself that his biggest breakthroughs came when he was out walking, when he was giving that scientific, rational mind a rest. And these insights would just break through on their own from some unknown source. And all of a sudden, a puzzle that he'd been trying to solve for weeks would resolve itself in the most elegant way. Einstein's not the only one to have experienced this. I assume that Max Planck had very similar experiences based on this quote and other quotes of his that I've read. So it's very interesting that someone who is a scientist, someone who has dedicated their life to the scientific method and to rational inquiry, would state right up front that the thing he is seeking can't be grasped by the intellect. Essentially, what Max Planck is telling me is that we can chase and we can pursue and we can study, we can research and experiment, and we can write and think and contemplate, but we will never grasp the truth with a capital T. We'll feel it intuitively and maybe even directly in our own day-to-day experience, but we'll never know it in the intellectual sense of the word. To me, this also speaks on the importance of developing one's intuitive or emotive faculties. It's very important because it's something that we all have access to, this very powerful and ancient processing system, the unconscious mind, as Jung called it. We all have access to it, but in our society, we're taught very early on to squash our intuitions, to ignore our gut feelings, to think instead of feel. And I think that thinking without feeling is a hopeless endeavor, just as feeling without thinking is a hopeless endeavor. I mean, feeling without thinking is what animals do. And though we are animals, we have evolved the capacity to think and to reflect. And so it's silly to not use this great tool that we've been given by nature. But at the same time, it's equally foolish to abandon that very reliable and very ancient processing system that we all have access to. I think what happens is eventually when we get to the limits of our intellect and we can go no further, we have the opportunity to leap with our intuition. The intellect can only take us so far. To get all the way, we have to rely on our innate capacity to feel things that we can't necessarily explain with our minds. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks for joining me, and live well, my friends.